This is Primetime Live, and thank you for joining us here in Rwanda and around the world. I'm Isabelle MASOZERA. Now tonight we talk about women and leadership. But to lay foundation for our conversation tonight, let's take a look at what the facts say.
Odd in present-day Africa to imagine a woman as a military strategist or a head of government, even after all the affirmative action. But the fact remains that it happened on various occasions in pre-colonial Africa, as history tells us. Notable amongst these women is Queen Makeda of Ethiopia, whose accounts are recorded in both the Quran and the Bible. Dahia al-Kahina, who commanded the African armies in the North African resistance against the Arab invaders in present-day Algeria. These and many more show that Africa has never been a place that shunned women in leadership. Be that as it may, the figures on the ground tell a different story in present-day Africa as well as the world in general. According to the Inter-Parliamentary Union, only 22.7% of all national parliamentarians were women as of June 2016. And that was a notable increase from a paltry 11.3% in 1995. Rwanda has the highest representation of women in parliament worldwide. The question we should ask ourselves is, how will women voters impact the 2017 presidential election?
It is still Primetime Live. I am privileged to be joined by three powerful women, and women I do admire. I do have Dr. Usta Kaitesi from RGB. Thank you so much for coming. Also with me is Alice Karekezi, who is a lecturer, a writer, a board member of the African Leadership Center. Your profile is beyond amazing. Thank you so much for coming back to Primetime Live.
Thank you so much.
All right, and last but not least, I do have Mutesi Gasana, who is the Managing Director of Arise Education. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Now, ladies, leadership and women being in power, just like the clip said before, this is not new. African women were always strong and embracing leadership from way back in time, but there seems to be a disconnect. After colonialism, women seem to need affirmation, affirmative actions to be able to get on the same level footing with men. And to start with, to start the conversation, I would like to start with you, Doctor. What do you think happened? And do you agree with me that this is something that changed way after?
Well, it's true something changed way after. When you look at the Kingdom of Rwanda, when it was still a kingdom, the presence and impact of the Queen Mother was very crucial in the leadership and the continuity of the leadership. But colonialism and its aftermath brought formal education. And when formal education came, it was the structures to power. Now, when you look at Rwandan history of education, a lot of it was concentrated in the religious perspectives, for example. So even up to 2006, I was able to do a little bit of a study, and the best performing schools in national exams to enter into university were seminaries, which meant that those were only men. And then when you go to the other, at least at 70%, at 30%, it was women, but from the schools that would not enter university immediately. So the nursing schools and the primary teaching schools. Now, when you start with that form of education, and then we know in the history of education, we had women taught courses of being homestead masters and managers. So that pulled women from the public sector, from the management, not from the management of the family necessarily, not from the management of the garden, which was the source of real food and which remains the fundamental source of food, yes, but from the accesses to power, the real political power, from the real accesses to finance as we stand today. So I think for me, the education sector and the determinants of economic participation through education became very crucial elements. But I should also say two other elements. The social construction that came from that education process also put women at the level, and mostly the legal environment. So then laws started to be created in a way that kept women from the offset. They were as important as well connected to their male relatives. So for me, I think that is partly what went wrong actually in the process.
All right, Moses, I'm going to bring you in on this. Do you agree with what she's saying?
Yes, I do agree, but I want to emphasize actually on colonialism, the impact of colonialism in making women to be more managers, which was, I think, the interpretation of the scriptures, which they thought that women, according to God's plan, were supposed to be, you know, were supposed to be helpers, actually, of men, that men were supposed to take the lead, and women were supposed to be somewhere, you know, taking instructions from the men.
You make it sound like that is wrong, because from where I stand, when I read the scripture, that's also what I understand.
I think it's wrong. It's wrong. When you see the creation, if we go back to that time, if we believe the creation time, we realize that actually the people who brought colonialism first were, you know, missionaries.
Yes.
So they're the ones who brought it. But now, when you go back to the story of creation, to those who believe on the story of creation, is that when God created man and woman, actually he created man and gave a woman to the man, which was a kind of showing him that he cannot do without a woman. So a woman was an important element of creation. But when colonialists came, like they did with all the other things, including, you know, you know, taking away some of the values that Rwandans had, because a woman in the former, you know, family of Rwandans had actually value. She talked about the queen, how the queen used. Actually, I always think that the queen was more of you know, the mastermind behind the king's leadership. So then they came and decided to put women behind. Why did they decide to put women behind? Because a woman, I believe, is an engine of anything that will actually move forward. So I think for the colonialists, they came and took away the power of women from the public, from the influence. Because a queen used to actually, you know, advocate for all the people who had problems, the social issues. You know, they were sorted at the table of the queen. They were not sorted at the table of the king. You know, it was the queen who took care of, you know, every social issue that was in the community, including advising the king on how to handle some issues in his kingdom. So I think when the colonialists came, they influenced the culture, they influenced also the religion or the belief system, and caused us to believe more into what they wanted us to believe. But I think when you read the Bible, actually, it's not true. Okay. The Bible is very clear that a man and a woman, both of them, he created them. So
some have argued that there might have been a reason as to why they decided to elevate the man more and suppress the woman, because they believed, and this is something I read, that a man was easier to control. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, let me put it that way. First of all, let's expand the debate beyond Rwanda, Africa, and the world. Yeah. The whole history of humanity. This is what we're discussing here. And this element, although we have had colonialism in ancient colonies, but even in other colonies, other parts of the world, that situation is not dramatically different. So that's called the question. In addition to colonialism, what is it there that can explain this situation? You have to go back to the gender roles and what women do that men do not do, which is mostly reproducing the human species. And we learn from different studies that have taken a long durée kind of insight that sedentarization of societies and the fact that women were forced to give birth, were not forced, were shaped to give birth, made them remain mainly in the private arena as opposed to public arena, because colonialism in our case reinforced something that is there. As crucial as I agree that the role of the Queen Mother was, what about other women? So it reinforced something that was there. And that's one calls for factors that are more universal, in the sense that having women to give birth retain her from playing certain roles historically. Now, it is not totally a surprise when you see that in more industrialized societies, let me take the case of Japan for that matter, the more society industrialized, the more women go to the workforce, the less they give birth. That's one also, it is on record. And societies...
So are you attributing this to the giving birth, and are you saying that maybe that was a hindrance?
I don't take it totally as a hindrance, because I give value to the fact that women give birth, and it is very important. For me, it has a lot of weight in what human society is. So staying behind to give birth is not totally losing out.
But it also is not leadership. Alice, I would like to take you back a little bit to what she was saying.
Yes.
She mentioned, she agreed with me that there was a chasm in between, from back in the day when, like the clip was saying, the Queen Makedas and then all the Queen of Sheba and the Cleopatras, and then there's colonialism, and then there's no woman in power.
But when you say that, you have to be cognizant. You are speaking about top elites of societies only. You are mentioning queens only.
But isn't it true that when we speak about the public knowledge speaks about the top leadership, like you're saying, but that is a reflection of the value and contribution of many of the women. So still, even when we are speaking about people in influence, you will speak mostly about those who go publicly influencing. I think for me, one of the really core things that Alice brings out is also what makes women is the fact that you can give a child itself is not a weakness. Just like she said, when men received a helper, it's a natural thing that you receive a helper because you have a weakness. You don't turn around and make the helper the weak person. It's a wrong philosophy of seeing things. So I think even in this case, the problem is the industrial sector and its evolution required importance to be at the industry level. When you are speaking of societies initially, constructed in having a livelihood around their environment, everybody is relevant, because you can serve your environment fully. When the man is out hunting, let's go in that history, he needs to be able, when he comes back, he needs somebody to preserve what he did hunt. Yeah. So I think for me, and I'm using a few current things, the economy of cash. Now, I am seeing ourselves going to from the industrial revolution to the use of ICT today. Women are going to be more empowered because they can still do all their roles. You know,
be at home, make the babies, and still rule the nations. All right. Now, which brings me back to something. Now, we have established that definitely women can't do it all. Like you said, make the babies and still be in power. Let's talk about us and how we support each other. Now, this has been a debate going on. When we go back to what happened since last year with the US elections, Hillary Clinton not getting as much support from the women as President Obama, for example, did. And also here on the continent itself, it's sort of been a common question. How is it that we tend to trust a man with power but not trust each other with power? And Motesi, I'd like to start with you. What do you think about that?
Thank you. Thank you for shooting that question to me. It's a very tough one. But I think it all comes back on how we were raised up. We were raised up in societies where we are told men are supposed to take the lead. Men are supposed to protect us. Men are supposed actually to, to cover us from our families, our brothers and fathers. And we actually grew up in a situation where we compromised ourselves. So our identity was a little bit compromised by knowing that there are things we can do and things we cannot do. So we grew up like that, and that belief still affects us, even in our choices, in our decision making. So when I see Usta going for, you know, the minister and or parliamentarian, and they have to vote. I'm like, okay, she'll go back to give birth. What is going to happen when she goes to maternity? You know, you will have all those things which are gender laws, and you will compromise them. They will cause you to compromise what she can do actually, and who she is. So I think we lost our identity by virtue of how we were taught.
I'm going to bring in Alice to also tell me what you think about what Mutesi is saying.
Well, for me, the picture is not that grim, because I see myself as a great supporter of other women, and I'm always very proud when women are in power or have.
But you're a researcher, and you have come across
and I'm
this.
not an exception, and I'm not an exception. But having said that, if you go by mere elections, statistics of elections, you can make the basic calculation that women are many more than men. Therefore, we should see more women support.
In power.
Yes. So, let's acknowledge, and back to what we've been saying previously, that men in power, in public power, because women remain sometimes very powerful out of the public eye. Yeah? So let us not be very narrow in the way we speak about power and women. For public power, it has been naturalized to see men in control. So we have been shaped to believe that is it, as my sister was mentioning here. So now, there is a gradual shift of having more and more women, both in a private arena as well as in public arena. What it requires also mobilization, because we are trying to shift what was established as natural. It means that women in public sphere needs to prove it more than men, because this is our history as humankind.
Okay, I'm going to bring you, Doctor, in here and to also comment on what Alice is saying, but I also would like to add another layer to it. Even though she's saying that back in the day we were told this, when we say we were told this, who said this?
No,
who set the standard?
Not only told, socialized.
In
it is
such
social
a manner.
learning. It's more than being told, because we internalized behavior and perceptions. So here we are trying to unlearn that the man is the only one in public arena. But it takes, for example, for women politicians to mobilize much more. And the case of Hillary Clinton is much more complex. Than we should read it much more in details in terms of who has elected her. The constituency of Hillary Clinton, who comes from the Democrat, is very, much more urban. New York City, Washington, D.C., and in deep places, they didn't feel the urge to mobilize from that stand. And the rednecks, excuse my French, decided to do what they know best, is to go for Republican politics. But maybe that's not our focus.
Okay, but it definitely does set the best for it, because like I was saying, to break the behavior, we have to learn new habits. And then the men are telling us, you can do this, because who told us we can't do it before? They were part of the problem. But now they're saying, you can do it. And our actions are saying to each other, no, we cannot. I would like to understand the psychological side of this.
Well, I think, Isabel, it's important to not think that it's not the men as a class who victimized women as a class. I think it is all those factors that created the social environment, you know. And then when our parents raise us, you know, we are biologically born male and female. But the way we are raised to believe in what we can do, there are things I don't do up to today. Why? Because I'm a sister of 8 brothers. And therefore my mom had an effort to make me a girl in the context of how you raise a girl. So I have, and by doing that, she was very fearful that I wouldn't be a girl in the correct sense.
Yes.
That is what we actually call the social construction of gender. You know, I am a girl. There are things I will do as a girl biologically. I will never want my husband to be pregnant. It will be so much. It will be nothing that would never happen for us. But there are many roles beyond being pregnant, and we could do them. But many, either women or men, don't believe that they can do it because socially they haven't seen themselves do it. The disconnect that we said, out of formal education, out of the economy evolving differently, and out of the families, learning to engage and creating girls gendered and male gendered has actually influenced so much that setting that we say. So I like to say that we are not accusing each other, and I think I want also to bring it in a political context. The majority that vote, in a way, they vote is a process of confidence. And confidence is either I have seen you do it, or I have seen people like you do it a long time. The process that we are in as Rwanda, we are saying we want to sustain what we have known. It works, we know it works. So the discussion of why women or men, or why women don't vote for women, and why men sometimes fear that women will not do it, is because we haven't been allowed to do mistakes in the public. Men do a lot of mistakes, you know.
But we seem to be harder on ourselves, and I'll quote a few examples. Recently in East Africa, a lady was standing to become, I think, Wandera Kaziwe, to become contesting for the AU seat of chairperson. And then what happened is, because of her past, the women themselves felt like she did not deserve the seat. My question would be, when it comes to moral standards, we seem to set different.
As AU Commissioner?
Yes.
Well, that's the only weakness of the candidacy of Dr. Kazibwe? That's what we should ask ourselves.
Yes, but then when it comes to morals, a man can do something and get away with it, but we seem to hold our fellow women to higher standards, yet they have to play the same game. They have to take on the same challenges, and they have to maneuver them. Shouldn't we be more forgiving and more understanding?
There was only one woman on the voting team. So still, I think for me...
And that's just an example that goes beyond politics, even in the workplaces. For example, when it comes to CEOs, and I was reading a study that was made, and women were asked who they would rather see as a head of a business, and they said a man. And they were asked why, and some said, you know, some of the reasons that we're giving, whether it's competence, whether it's moral grounds, we seem to have double standards. And at least I would like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, back to the point I was raising, just formally, we tend to give them credit. They have the credit of experience. They've been in public life forever. But I believe it's about, it's a question of time. It's a question of time, naturalizing, like you should discuss with younger girls in Rwanda today. The fact that they have been socialized with having women in public positions for so long. Our daughters do not react necessarily and strictly like we do to the same situation. I'm so, and it is almost a bit unfortunate that we cannot quantify what is brewing in our societies in terms of how girls and boys look at our society, look at those positions. It has changed. Because of what? Because having 63.4% of women in legislature, it's life-changing for a whole country. And having 50% of women in the Supreme Court, etc., all those statistics that we know, it's having the effect of naturalizing women in public arena.
And we cannot leapfrog that.
For
we have
men,
to let it take its time.
For men, for women, for boys, and for girls, for a whole society. Much more than, and again, beyond Rwanda, you can see that even other African countries are Rwanda has set standards that stimulate other societies to vie for more. So I think these are changing times, and social processes take much longer than the life of an individual, and sometimes we should be a bit patient with time. My own question is very much, how do we secure those gains? Because of the novelty, because of the deeper structures that are still clouding on our perceptions and our behavior, how do we do so that the gains that we have made for over than a decade in Rwanda remain? Next year we have legislative elections. So what are the plans? Do we go beyond 63.4? Or do we, yes, is a setback possible? What have we done? What do we still have to do? These are the questions that should occupy us. But it should not surprise us very much that things take much longer.
Okay, and Mutesi, I'm going to ask you this. Is there a way we can fast track this? Because we tend to love allowing the natural process, taking long and just letting it come natural. But is there a possibility that women can just grab it by the horn and say, we've been given all the tools, let's embrace this?
Well, I think we are already doing it. I would say that in Rwanda we are already doing it. When you go to the private sector, innovation, she talked about the young girls and young boys that are coming up now. They're having equal opportunities in innovation, in ICT, in every area, agriculture. Everybody is having the same opportunities. Maybe that concept actually is in the people who have a little bit, you know, of a certain age group of people. But for the young people, I think this time, it's not, it's, you know, the stereotyping and everything is being broken. And people are seeing who is capable. That is what Rwanda is looking at. And I like what Alice said, that we have set the standards for even other countries, because you had, when the president was visiting, was in Belgium, that lady who said, I came to Rwanda and I want to become a Rwandan. It's because she's seeing what Rwanda is going through. She's a girl, she's a woman, and she's admiring what Rwanda is going through. And yes, we can do it by doing what we are doing now and continuing to do it more and more.
All right, well said. We now have to take a short break. I think it goes without saying, Rwanda is indeed setting the example. But now that we've said so, is Rwanda ready to make a woman chief of staff? Don't go away.
Urashaka kumenya impamvu zabyo, urashaka kumenya icyo abayobozi n'abasesenguzi babivugaho. Kurikira ikiganiro sobanukirwa kuri RTV. Muri iki kiganiro dutumira abayobozi, abanyapolitiki n'abandi basesenguzi mu ngeri zinyuranye, tukabasobanuza, bagasobanura, ugasobanukirwa ukuri kubiriho.
You're still watching Primetime Live. Welcome back. We ask, is Rwanda ready for a woman to become chief of staff? Not just the quality of leadership a woman provides, but is the populace ready to embrace this? And my question will go to you, Alice. Let's kick off with what you think.
Well, first of all, let's ask ourselves how many women engage in the military. I suppose, are you speaking about chief of staff in the military? Yes. It has been proven, and I think the reports of the implementation of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 for Rwanda has been very clear. It's taking time for women to engage even when the Rwanda Defense Forces mobilize for that. And interestingly, and we should not forget that there are important physical obstacles to women, for women even to qualify as cadet. So, and those ones are not necessarily lack of will on both parts, but there are some obstacles because you have...
What are some of these obstacles?
You have to do a certain kind of trainings to be able to do some physical efforts to qualify to enter the army. And many women are failing at that level because of biology, because of physiology as well. So this is something that is there. We should not understate. But what I've liked and what I've been observing that is being done is to recruit women deliberately in places where they have a comparative advantage. Now we are speaking a lot more and more of cyber crimes, for example, as one of the most important challenge of national security. And according to specialists, they are saying that women, because of being more focused and being able to multi-purpose very much, are becoming excellent candidate for that. We all know about Esther Mbabazi, and Air Force is another space for women. The Minister of Defense has been very clear about that. So we should look at also the issue of where women play a better role. That should also occupy us.
Can that role be as the next president? Is that something we see? I'd like to get more to see. Do you think women are actually there? Do you think that we've come that far to actually trust a woman to be a leader of a nation?
Well, I think we can trust them, but Alice mentioned something earlier of experience. Men have been leading for so long. Let's go back to the Minister of Defense. Let us go back to history. Ndabaga is one of the girls that decided to become a military, and she had to, camouflage so that she can become, a man to be able to go to the war front and replace the father. And I think that one shows you, to me, it shows me that women, yes, they can become. Why not the chief of staff? But without saying that, still on that, she can become. But have we gotten to that level? We still have, the way she mentioned, the biological, we still have a long way to go to get to that.
True.
And yes, women, we can trust people because we can trust other women. In my office, we are 10 members, for example, and 9 of them are women. One is the only boy. It doesn't mean that actually I gave them position or they were given position in the company because they are women. They were given position because they qualified. So I think we have where we are going, we have where we have started. Definitely you cannot just wake up,
and get there.
Baby and you become, a presenter. You have to go through education, you have to go through experience, you have to go through the steps. So, but we are heading there. We are heading there.
So you're saying men have the advantage of time and experience, but you also noted something, ambition. There, and I'd like to go back to that because what do you do in a world where if you are too ambitious, then women won't trust you because of that? If you're too likable, then you're not fit because you're too soft for the office. I would like to hear what you have to say. Doesn't it go beyond what she's saying?
Last week, a friend who is a former student of mine, a lady, came to me and said, I think there is a discussion we need to do. She says she's really a beautiful girl. She's a lady now. And she said, I was told by a man who is in a very good leadership position somewhere. I think in an institution, not necessarily government. And he said, he told me, he came and we spoke about work and I was very engaged, and then he said, I'm shocked. I didn't know beautiful women can be also smart intellectually. Now, of course, those are perceptions.
Yes.
You know, what your brain has does not necessarily shape your body at all. Yes. And those are perceptions. You know, the world is full of perceptions. Women should be conscious that those perceptions are there. And when you are conscious of the perceptions, you are more tolerant and more accommodative. You don't want people to just immediately think you can handle it. It's natural, it's very human to be skeptical. Allow them the space to be skeptical, but and what I like that we should contextualize about what Rwanda has done is it is the obligation, the duty of a transformative leadership to remove institutional barriers. If they have been over-socialized, that they become part of the culture, like in Rwanda it was, when you had a child and you were a woman, that child would not have the right to become Rwandan. Now that institutional setting has been removed. Yeah. There are legal boundaries that are set from the convictions of society where they are. And so from that part, for me, I think we have a duty and role ourselves to help people understand that what we are, being diverse does not make me limited. Being able to be a mother, I'm not limited, but I need an environment. I need an environment that is inclusive and accommodative. I think what I'm hearing Alice say, what is probably wrong with the kind of training that is there is that it has to evolve over time and be accommodative. Even men at different circumstances do not have the same needs. And therefore you cannot have people and think that in one full year they will be having the same needs. Okay. But speaking to women ourselves, you know, I just don't want to wake up and think that I can be the head of the military. It requires, you know, I don't want to wake up in the university and I want to be appointed as a professor without a PhD. There are requirements. If we want to get there, we need to prepare. You do not go in the biking sports without having a bike.
And we're shooting ourselves in the foot. In order to prepare, you need to, in order to have the experience and prepare and learn, you need to have the platform first. Which still takes me back to the question, are we ready to have a woman president?
Look at, try to observe the statistics of high schoolers, national examinations, and look at the top 10. You have more and more girls being among the top 10. Check on the Miss Jik session that happens annually. Look at those girls who are becoming, who are gaining ground in places where traditionally you would expect boys. I came to be invited by an organization of young ladies, Girls for ICT. Most of them have their companies. These are Rwandan girls. And it was, for me, it was an eye-opening of what is happening at the lower level of society, what is less visible, what will be reaping the fruit. That experience you are speaking about, it is already in the making. It's not like we will hold history and time and say, okay, let's go back and see how we can build it. It is being built. When I hear my younger daughter speaking about her aspirations, what she's doing, etc. It comes so naturally to her to say, I want to be the first female saxophonist in Rwanda. This is a balance. I haven't discussed that with her, but the environment she's living in is stimulating her.
Which
so
sadly
it is
is not
already
the same
being
elsewhere,
done.
but I say Rwanda is definitely doing well, which brings me to us changing what we're talking about a little bit and going to another side of this. There's trusting that we can have a woman in office, but before we get somebody becoming a parliamentarian or a head of any government, we have to find out what is a woman looking for when they are voting for this person. Can you help me understand that? And Mutesi, I would like to start with you.
Well, I think with our history, what are we looking for? But currently, what are we looking for? As women who are not empowered before, what were they looking for? If they are looking for a leader. As women who are empowered today, what are we looking for?
Absolutely.
I'm looking at myself, using myself as an example. If I want to vote, I want to vote a person that will take the country where it has to go. I'm looking for a person that will be able to protect the country. I'm looking for a person who will be able to give a ground for my kids to grow in a safe environment, where the country is secure. As a mother, I'm looking at a person who will be able to build the capacity of my kids to become better citizens. And that is what I'm looking for now, which is totally different from what I was looking for before, because what I was looking for before was to be dependent. I was supposed to be dependent on a man. Therefore, I had to vote for a man, maybe to a position in the leadership, my brother or my husband. But now I'm looking at a person who can take me from one level to another, who can take my young brothers and sisters to, to the places of, their destinies, or where they're supposed to be.
Okay.
That is what I'm looking for. And that is what I think that women are looking for.
All right. Doctor, are you also looking for a leader with a vision and a plan?
I'm looking for a leader with a vision and with a transformation mind. And that transformation mind is going beyond the odds. Saying that, well, we don't have to wait 100 years to have women get there. We have to create an environment that allows women to get there. They will make a few mistakes down the road when they get there for the first time, or even the men who see them around them, they will see them differently. That is the kind of leader that I want. I want a leader, and I should say that I'm not that leader, not because I don't have those values, but I don't have the record to sustain those values at this time. So I am, and let me go back. I had the opportunity to work with the Constitution as it was being revised, and I read very passionately the words of the women and what they were looking for. They would situate themselves. I was a widow. I was abused of genocide. I'm looking for somebody who gave me the right value. They allowed me to have medicine, and now I'm a grandmother when I thought I wouldn't raise my children. I think really when we go to vote, we vote for what we want individually to protect and sustain. And the kind of leader, and let me go to even the numbers, the kind of leadership that we have today is a leadership, we are speaking about 64%, but 64% is also too much, still very much the impact of the leadership.
Very true.
Because if you pick 30%, the Electoral Commission cannot receive any party and accept their list if that list does not qualify with 30%. And therefore, the legal standards that we are bound to respect today are yet to become a natural culture. And that leader that I'm looking for is the one that has transformed me from just being an ordinary person, given me the resources, created the learning environment for me, gave me universities to go to, gave me the opportunities to study what I studied, gave me the opportunity to practice. And here I am, my daughters will have seen me practicing. They will probably want a leader who they have seen operating. The mother will have been a leader even in their sight and in their visions. We come from an environment that we didn't have that, and therefore I want a leader today who I have the confidence that their values came out from that particular, came out innovatively in an environment that wasn't like that. You know, the world is still at 22%. You need a leader who believes in 64% when everybody else is at 22%.
All right. Now, what I hear is she does agree with Motesi on vision, but she also says stability, security, and somebody that puts women at the forefront. Do you think that both of them represent the views of majority of the women out there? And what do you think, in your own opinion, women are looking for?
Not only women, but also men. In addition to that, a leader is must be courageous, make unpopular decisions with this vision. So this is our history as Rwanda. Perhaps we have been in the extreme case situation, but most societies today require change, dramatic change, quitting comfort zone. And you need still that stability, you need welfare, and you also need courage, a great deal of courage. Courage comes from character, but courage comes also from deeds. You practice courage, and you get more courageous. This is, I think, this is definitely my opinion, in addition to what my sisters were saying. But it is also something I see having to come even beyond Rwanda. We are living changing times. I mean, we are living a time when war cannot even be defined. You take an improvised device, you explode London Bridge. You can threaten London Bridge when you want. You can go at the airport in Brussels when you want. So it is no longer peculiar to Rwanda. And we are living places. I was very interested to listen to the news recently, how after the first data of the French elections, they were thinking to introduce proportional in the parliament, because the politics, and what Rwanda has been doing since 1994. So this is one thing. In terms of security, look at when Rwanda, after the terror attacks of 2009 onwards, have started, and police and greater presence of security forces in the street has been visible. We received a lot of criticism. This is exactly what is happening elsewhere in the world. Look at how shaky is the presidency in the United States of America today. Beyond the latest things in the news, the latest tweets, we can acknowledge that we are living changing times that need dramatic changes in terms of power, balance in the world, but also in terms of the way we look at our security, our safety, our welfare, the way we accommodate diversity. Or not. Right. And in this diversity, women are there. And I think women aspire to that. I definitely do aspire to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very well said. Now we know exactly, come 2017, August 4th, we know exactly what the women are going to be looking for when they choose who the president will be. But I'd like to ask a question that I can't leave without asking. Has there been a significant impact with the 64% that we have today, and with women being more involved in the politics of the nation? Do you feel Rwanda is in a much better place than it was before this was the case? And I would like to know how. I'd like to start with you.
Definitely. I think I'll go to, actually, when you look at even the institutions, I was reading the reports from the Ombudsman. I have not seen any woman who have been in power and, you know, were charged with corruption. Actually, corruption cases with women are very few, which shows me that actually they are very strong when it comes to leadership, taking up leadership positions. Because those are some of the things that we do use for the measurement of a successful leader, a leader who is not corrupt. So with the 64%, I think there has been a lot of empowerment, not only for, you know, the older women and women in the villages, but also for the women, the upcoming women the women to become, you know, these women who are coming up. And I think that is the major, to me, it's a major milestone for the women who have gone to the parliament coming back down to empower the young women to take up the flag. Because, you know, continuity, that is what we're talking about a good leader. But also look at, you know, all the districts. We have vice mayors, we have mayors, we have, you know, governors. We are having that, you know, that share of women in positions, which is definitely changing. Because I believe that if a woman actually is at the forefront of leadership, there's a lot of changes that happen from the home.
And that is actually true. I mean, we've seen with the First Lady having children have access to education through Mbuto and many others that are trying to make a change. But beyond that, is there something you can point to and say that has changed because there's women now in Rwanda's politics active?
Well, I think everything has changed. You know, you are speaking about a post-genocide Rwanda that had a lot of its male in jail, a lot of its men in the armed forces, not living in their homes and communities. We are seeing a generation of really very capable Rwandans who have mostly been raised by mothers. I think I want to start even beyond that. I don't want to start in parliament. I also want to start with the great women, with all the brokenness, with all the burden that a post-conflict society put on them, how they have been able to shape a very confident generation, grace to the environment of the government that has the government has created. The presence of women, I like how the president actually qualifies it. He says that beyond having women exercise their rights, beyond the economic sense that it makes, it also changes our perception on leadership. And I think for me that is core. You are raising girls and boys who feel responsible for this society. Because you don't want a portion of Rwandans not participating in the stability of this state, not voting for the kind of leadership that they want to shape, but also you want a future that whichever Rwandan, male or female, it lands to, they will have had the patriotic and the zeal and the pride to continue and carry forward this country. For me, that's the core change.
That is a big change. And you have a parting shot tonight, Alice. So as we wind up the show, what's the one thing you're most proud of now, especially that we have women more involved?
Perhaps sorry to take you back, because I think as we're moving forward, we have to recognize that beyond the woman question, we're speaking about the way politics have been done in Rwanda. And politics has actors. You cannot isolate advancement we have been witnessing and living in Rwanda from a political vision of a political party. It didn't come by itself. We should not also lose sight, because it is embedded in the political organization of Rwanda Patriotic Front that has been leading politics in Rwanda for the last 2 decades and more. And that is very important as we're moving forward, to know that if we do not pursue those gains, we can lose them.
Okay, that is very nicely said, and we'll be closing on that note. But remember to catch the repeat tomorrow at 2 p.m. and we'll be in your households again next week on Wednesday. We now hand you over to our news desk. It's a good night from us.
Sunday Live.
Hey Rwanda, East Africa, Africa and the world. Catch RTV Sunday Live on the largest national media house in East and Central Africa, Rwanda TV.
Bringing you uplifting gospel entertainment with Bible content. Keeping it Jesus at RTV Sunday Live.
And you can also follow RTV Sunday Live on Facebook and Instagram and at RTV Sunday Live on Twitter.
With your hosts Ronnie El Maestro, Becky the Gorgeous, and your favorite DJ, DJ Sean. RTV Sunday Live.
L'aventure continue chaque dimanche 17h et jeudi 18h sur RTV. C'est comme avant, mais avec plus. Plus d'inspiration.
Ne pas reporter à demain ce qu'on doit faire là maintenant.
Plus de motivation.